I noticed the missing chair before anyone said a word. The restaurant had that careful kind of luxury white tablecloths, pressed so flat they looked almost painted on, glassware aligned like soldiers, a long decorated table for gifts near the window. Someone had spent money making sure everything looked effortless. There were 12 chairs around the table. 12 guests were expected. I made 13. For a moment I assumed there had been a mistake. People shifted coats and purses, standing in small clusters while the host poured sparkling water. My sister, glowing in soft pink and attention, was accepting congratulations. No one seemed rushed to solve the seating problem. I stood there long enough to feel the familiar sensation, the one I'd known most of my life in this family. Not open hostility, just a subtle rearranging of space until I no longer quite fit. My sister eventually noticed me. She looked at the table, then back at me like someone realizing they had miscounted silverware. "Well," she said, almost cheerfully, pointing out the large window beside us. "Why don't you try that dirty pub across the street?" Outside, across the narrow road, a small brick building sat under a faded sign, the kind of place construction workers went after long shifts. A few people chuckled politely. My mother added, "It suits you perfectly." She didn't say it cruelly. That would have required more attention than I'd ever received. Just casually, like stating the weather, someone passed a plate of pastries. Someone else pulled a chair closer to make space for a handbag. Conversations resumed around the edges of me. I could feel the old instinct waking up, the urge to smooth things over, to make a joke, to act easygoing, to stay. For years I had done exactly that. At Christmas dinners, where my career choices were described as temporary experiments, at birthdays where my sister's promotions were toasted while my work was summarized with a polite, "He's figuring things out." None of it dramatic. Just a steady repositioning. I had spent a long time trying to correct the image they had of me. It had never worked, so I smiled. "I'll do that," I said. I picked up my coat and walked out. No one stopped me. Someone laughed again behind me, though it sounded faint, like it belonged to another room entirely. Outside, the air felt cooler than I expected. The street between the restaurant and the pub was maybe 20 steps wide, but crossing it felt strangely long. Halfway across, I glanced at the restaurant windows. The whole baby shower scene was framed neatly inside, balloons tied to chairs, pastel decorations, my mother leaning toward my sister with proud concentration. No one was looking at the door. I opened the pub and stepped inside. The place smelled faintly of wood polish and old beer. The lighting was dim but warm, the opposite of the restaurant's careful brightness. The bartender looked up. "Evening," he said, then paused. His expression shifted to recognition. "Well, look who finally decided to show up during daylight." I sat at the bar. "Long story," I said. He poured a drink without asking. This place had known me for years, late nights mostly, back when I was building something my family never quite understood. They thought I was drifting. In reality, I had been meeting people here, investors, contractors, city planners who preferred quiet conversations away from polished offices. The bartender slid the glass toward me. Through the front window I could still see the restaurant. A few heads had turned now. Curiosity, maybe. The pub door opened again. Mark stepped in, the owner. Tall, gray-haired, always moving like he had a dozen small fires to manage at once. When he saw me, he came straight over. "There you are," he said. "City team should be here any minute." Across the street, someone at the restaurant window leaned closer. Mark didn't notice. Or maybe he did. "You ready for tomorrow?" he asked. "Been ready for 2 years," I said. A moment later the door opened again. 2 people walked in, one from the city planning office, the other from the development council. They shook my hand like we'd been in meetings all week, which we had. Outside, something changed in the restaurant. You could see it even from here. The ripple of attention moving through the tables. Phones came out. Someone whispered to someone else. A cousin I recognized stood up and walked to the window, staring across the street like he was trying to solve a puzzle. The neighborhood redevelopment project had been in the news for weeks. Half the buildings on this block would be affected. Some would disappear, some would become something much larger. The pub would stay, Not because it was lucky. Because I had bought the surrounding properties 18 months earlier and negotiated the preservation clause myself. Inside the pub, we spread out blueprints across the bar. No announcements, no grand gestures, just calm conversation. Through the glass, I saw my mother looking across the street now. Her expression wasn't angry. It was something quieter. Recognition, maybe. She turned away quickly. No one from the baby shower came over, and I didn't expect them to. Eventually, the meeting wrapped up. Papers were folded, hands shaken. Mark clapped me lightly on the shoulder before heading toward the kitchen. I finished my drink and stepped outside. The restaurant windows were still bright. The party continued, though the movement inside looked slower now, like something delicate had cracked under the surface. My mother glanced toward the street again. For a second, our eyes met through the glass. Then she looked down. I didn't wave. I didn't go back. I walked past the restaurant, down the block, toward my car. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't thinking about what they believed about me. I wasn't trying to correct it. The seat they never meant to give me had finally stopped mattering. And strangely, without it, I felt lighter.